This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, GMR Entertainment, WJ England & Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport.
Soul is something you know when you feel it. You can't miss it here, here, or here. And some would say it's here. This is soul. Ah, okay, not this. Completely, utterly, soulless. Now, here's some soul. This is the sound of soul. And now, thanks to generous donations of soul from here, and here, we're pleased to say, it's here. Especially here. And here. Introducing the first electric car with a genuine sports car soul. The Porsche Cayman. Soul. Electrified.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
This is so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real. It's all about now. And what's for the now? The now is about who can find themselves at the pinnacle, who can master a vehicle which, for many people who go and drive in this style of category, knows that you're not going to get that much of a breakaway, knows that this race is going to be a lot closer than it normally is, and knows that they have to challenge themselves at one of the marquee circuits in terms of a legacy. It has one of the greatest corners in all of motor racing history, and today, the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca plays host to the official Maltese Gran Turismo Porsche Cayman GT4 Challenge here, live with the fantastic World Pro Racing on YouTube, on Facebook Live, and on Twitch, as well as the likes, of course, of ESTV, TVM Sport, and Motorsport.tv. We welcome you here to the conversation here today. We're a few minutes away from moving over towards practice, which will be coming up in a few minutes' time. My name's Jake Sperry. Nicholas Hillebrand is here alongside me, back after our little adventure 8 days ago, but it's been long worth the wait. And Nicholas, we're talking about a style of car, a style of racing, which is a little bit newer in terms of how racing has started to evolve and develop, and more emphasis is being put on building up the racing ladder, and GT4 category vehicles have just started to make that a reality.
Yes, GT4 is quite something to get into in racing. Of course, they're not as fast as GT3 cars, especially, they're a bit heavier generally, and they don't have as much aero. But there's this very interesting power-to-weight ratio that people go for. So, for example, you have cars like the Porsche that don't have around 500 horsepower like other cars like the McLaren. But, of course, they weigh a lot less, so they're a lot more nimble. And it's really interesting to see the balance in these GT4 cars. Today, of course, we only have the Porsche Cayman. Only, of course, because it's still a very interesting car. It's a bit smaller than the classic 911, of course, but still a mid-engine, proper sports car. And around Laguna Seca, I think it's going to be very interesting, Jake.
I certainly think it will be. It's very much a case of one of those tracks which, if you learn and understand, Laguna Seca is one of the easier circuits to learn, but to master, this track takes a lot of time and dedication, especially when you have to drop through 11 stories of corkscrew left into corkscrew right, which makes life very, very tricky indeed. But today is just the first of some amazing racing that's going to be happening with World Pro Racing over the course of the next week or so. And of course, tomorrow night is going to be something very, very key. But we're going to talk about that in a little bit, because we have to talk about, of course, what this race is presented by, and that is Continental Cars Limited, and the prizes which are on offer for these drivers today. The top three are coming away with their own choice, and they have a choice of a Porsche mug, they have their choice of a Porsche hat, or they have the choice of the Porsche cuddly toy. Well, we have, of course, that choice that will be coming up, and hopefully that will all be nicely well sorted and available. But Nicholas, just to bring you into the conversation, as I very awkwardly try and recover from where we are at the moment, a lot of prizes available here today, but there's also all of what is coming up. And talking about prizes, we've got the AMD event that will be coming up, the Triple Challenge, which will be tomorrow, and then we've got the HyperX Endurance Series, which will be coming up a little bit later on in the week. And on top of that as well, we'll have that 1 hour of Kyalami, which will be rounding things off on Wednesday.
Yeah, we have a lot of very interesting things coming up. Kyalami, of course, once again in Porsche vehicles, this time in the 911 GT3 Cup. And we're already looking at quite some good and very interesting drivers for that event. But as you said, the AMD event, it's going to be quite interesting, because we have three completely different cars with a huge field of very competitive drivers from RF2. So that's going to be something to look forward to as well. And as you said, the HyperX Endurance Series, multiple races, so a proper championship. And I think that's the first as well, isn't it?
It certainly is, and it's not often that you find HyperX jumping in on board with events that will be going on in the sim racing sphere. So this will be really, really entertaining to watch over the course of the weeks that will be coming up. And of course, you can catch all of that action. If you have not already, ladies and gentlemen, you can like, share, and subscribe on all social media platforms and on YouTube as well to World Pro Racing. If you haven't had the chance already, if you are a budding sim racer who wants to get involved, either starting up on the ladder, moving up, or maybe you're looking at something maybe a little bit different. You're a veteran, you're a pro, you want to try and find the big results that really give you that marquee name to you, then head over to worldproracing.com. There are signups available, and there are many, many events which could be for you. But we've got to talk about what's going to be coming up. It's 15 minutes of practice, Nicholas. It's going to be 15 minutes of qualifying that follows up, and then it'll be 25 laps worth of racing at Laguna Seca here today. And really a track which is about elevation, which is all about holding momentum. This is going to be one of those races where qualifying is going to be important, but this is going to test the very basics of what a driver has. There's a reason why a series such as the Battery Tender MX-5 series have come here in the past looking for drivers.
Yes, of course. It's not overall a very long circuit, but it's a very tricky one, as you said, to perfect. Because you have a couple of just completely flat 90-degree corners, but then the elevation starts kicking in. Then you have off-camber, on-camber, all sorts of, dips and crests that you have to go over. And then, of course, the world-famous corkscrew, where, well, we saw so many moves already. I think the most iconic one is probably in motorcycle racing, one from with Valentino Rossi involved. And then, of course, I think the most famous one from the late 90s, kart, Alex Zanardi, just making the lunge of his life there. And it's guaranteed to be very, very, very interesting, as we now finally have pictures from the track with Rike in a very nice basic white and blue design going up the hill to the aforementioned very famous corkscrew, late on the brakes here, and goes left in, and now comes the massive downhill dip. Look at that suspension going to work there.
Absolutely, you drop down 11 flights of stairs, some say 11 stories when you go from the top of the corkscrew to the bottom, and most times when you fall down 11 flights of stairs, it doesn't normally end very well. That's how much the drivers are going to have to be challenging themselves here today around this very, very beautiful circuit. But here in practice, it's all about now trying to find the results that they want to out of this. A lot of familiar names here, and some that maybe aren't so familiar to those who have been watching over the last 2 months of racing action that we have brought to you with World Pro Racing and the events on Gran Turismo Sports, which of course on the PlayStation 4 is the marquee racing game, and some would say the real driving simulator that goes on with PlayStation 4. And at the moment, Rike top of the times, but you've got the likes of, there is Deman, who is trying to find some good pace. You've got Mikhail, of course, as well, who is trying to get the car moving forward in the velocity machine. He's in the pits in second position. So I think there's a lot of drivers here today who may be targeting this event in a vehicle which is unfamiliar to those. There's your reference earlier, number 46 for Ivan Birmingham there, with the Valentino Rossi number on the back. But what's key today here, Nicholas, is the fact that this might be a chance for some unfamiliar drivers to get a lot closer than they normally would in higher powered vehicles.
Yeah, most definitely. And as you said, in higher powered vehicles, it's very easy to just recover from maybe a bit of a worse line for a corner, maybe making a mistake. But in these cars, they are extremely light, but of course they only have around 380 horsepower. Only, of course, with quotations there. But you have to really take care that you take corners cleanly, that you take the momentum through the corners with everything that you can get. And of course, we have a lot of familiar faces here already. Shalino, Rike, Mikhail, Ivan. But of course, we also have quite a few new people here. I think, actually, Chris Pitteri we have seen before as well. And the man, but comparatively new faces. Like we know Shalino, for example, from all the casual races at Spa already. And then Black Sky here, we don't know so well already. So maybe it's a nice chance for them to, show a little bit of presence and, establish themselves along the well-known faces.
Well, here is a little look then at the final corner. Shalinu going past John Varro here, heading through the left-hand bend, the final corner, turn 12 out on track, and probably the most understated one here in terms of how drivers are going to be taking it, because that is the final place where you are going to be seeing those overtakes being made on track. If it may come down to that corner, that is always a place where you can have a lunge. This is Caxa 1, 2, 3 in 11th position right now, sporting the Red Bull Porsche right now, trying to slam on the brakes and make on through. So we'll see how Caxa does in terms of this one, running the 666 number. And now this is also something that's very interesting. Porsche, of course, have a big lineage and legacy when it comes to actually supporting now esports and sim racing in general. They have had a number of events. Most famously, they had their big event over at their factory in Leipzig, and a lot of things have come out of that. Of course, on the iRacing side of things, with the iRacing simulator, they've got the Porsche Esports Super Cup, which goes on, of course, which is an event which Red Bull actually do take part in with the likes of Graham Carroll, Patrick Holtzman, and Sebastian Job. So what we do see now is that Porsche and many other manufacturers are starting to look at sim racing, say where they didn't 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and say, well, now this is really starting to kick off, and this is exactly where sim racing is starting to go and should be respected as probably the most transferable esport that exists out there on the market today.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's based on, automobile racing, and automobile racing has always been a carrier of invention and just generally competition. It's been around for almost 100 years, or even longer than that, actually. And, the big barrier was always that it's very expensive. And with sim racing, in this case, you just need a PS4. You can drive with a controller even, and, so you just need a TV, internet, and a PS4, and you can just get right in there. So you have a huge lot of people that can just get in there. You can have people that just don't really care about real motorsports too much, but they like racing games. Or you can also have, real enthusiasts that are, real life racing fans, or whatever kind of racing fans, or just, they like Porsche, so they just decided to get this game and just drive this a bit. And, you have a really broad market here of people that can just jump in and join these races. So it's really just nice to see how broad the market can be and how many different drivers with different backgrounds we can get.
Absolutely, and that's going to be something really worth keeping in mind as we see more and more of these events coming up into the future. Now, here's a driver definitely worth keeping an eye out on. Mikael is probably what you would say here in terms of the Gran Turismo sphere in Malta of the big three, and that goes alongside with Windy Boy and, of course, Kyokudo Racing. This is someone to really keep in mind because it's not all about this year with these casual races that come up and these weekly events that we see here in the Maltese community with a bit of contact past Ivan there going through the Andretti hairpin. What's going to be key here is looking at 2021, the national championship that will be coming up. And more importantly than that, the FIA Motorsport Games, which for the first time is going to be including Gran Turismo Sport as a sim racing category.
Yeah, and overall, especially in the last couple of years, sim racing has grown massively in the esports category, just as esports has overall grown as well. And especially in the last couple of months through the pandemic, there was so many competitions and races just happening and getting so much attention through all different sorts of media that it's really grown quite a lot. Real drivers, obviously unable to race in real life, they went and all got simulators. We got even drivers like Sebastian Vettel just coming in for the race challenges and stuff. And it was really, really interesting to see so many different drivers from different ages of motorsport as well, because, not just modern drivers, but also drivers who had already their career going in the 70s, in Emerson Fittipaldi's case. All these different sorts of drivers all came together and started racing together, and it was really interesting to just see them compete alongside, of course, people of younger age, people of the pure sim racing variety.
Absolutely. You can see on screen practice is about 15 minutes. We're about halfway through that right now. We'll be looking over at qualifying. That'll be coming up. 15 minutes, open session. You're allowed to finish the times. And then, of course, that 25-lap race that will be coming up. What's interesting to see here is in terms of your left-hand side ticker on screen that you've got right now, you can see when drivers are in the pits what style of tyre they have available to them. Most drivers today are going to be running that orange soft compound tyre. That's going to be the quickest compound tyre in terms of how they will be racing here today, but they also have the option for the yellow medium tyre, which Mr. Collins is going on to right now. Now, Nicholas, for those who maybe are a little bit uninformed about how tyre compounds affect racing, just explain the difference between the soft compound and the medium compound tyre.
Right, here we go. The soft compound, of course, has the most grip because the rubber is the softest. It doesn't give that much resistance, so it moves around a lot and it can let the car grip a little better to the surface. But of course, because it's softer, it heats up more and also it gets worn out a lot faster. The medium tire, it lasts a lot longer, but of course, you slide around a bit more, you just don't get the same amount of cornering grip. So it'll be interesting to see how people will attempt this. A lot of people just go straight for the soft tires. They want to go with optimum pace the entire time. They want to push on the limit the entire time. And some people go for the medium tires. They just try to hold back a little bit. They just try to stay out a little bit longer, but maybe, just maybe, they can keep it out long enough so they just, for example, when you would normally go for a two-stop just purely on soft tires, you would instead have a one-stop with a medium tire run and a soft tire run. So you would save yourself a pit stop, which, if you can go fast enough on the medium tires, would save you some time as well.
It certainly would, and also you have to keep out in mind how that strategy is going to play out with two factors, and those are how much the tyre wears over the course of a stint, or, for example, maybe how much fuel that you are burning over the course of a stint. There's no point putting on, say, a medium compound tyre if you're going to run out of fuel through 5 laps, get a pit stop anyway, when the soft compound is still going to be working for you as you drive along. Same can be said, if those soft compound tyres wear out here today incredibly quickly, it may not be worth the 1 lap that you may get at full speed on that tyre, because you'll be burning away that rubber and dropping marbles here, there and everywhere onto the outskirts of the circuit, which makes life even tougher as this track rubbers in more and more that these races are going to be going on. But what is going to be worth keeping in mind here today is actually how much tyre wear acceleration is going to be in display for this race today, because from talking about what was happening maybe a couple of weeks ago that we were, Nicholas, or 8 days ago I should say, we were looking at 7 times the rate of normal acceleration here on Gran Turismo Sport, which means that tyres, they are going to be a commodity.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, with these accelerated rates, it's really interesting to always see how people will tackle it, because of course it wears faster as well, and the track gets rubbered in a little bit different as well. But also, when you make a mistake, it costs you all the more dearly. So I think it's going to be a real contest now of who keeps the most momentum up in the corners and who keeps the car the calmest, because every bit of spectacular driving, of course, it looks the best, a power slide through a corner or something like that, or when you're just with screeching tires just coming sideways into a corner, it looks amazing, but for the tires, it's definitely not the right way to go.
Absolutely not, and there are lots of factors which come into the way that you race around a place like this. Something that will be worth keeping in mind is going to be the Gran Turismo Sport slowdown system. Of course, you can't take many liberties or gain too many advantages when you race in Gran Turismo Sport. You can't cut all the corners like you would, say, in our game out there on track. So what drivers have to do is drive within the racing lines and not run into trouble. And you will see at certain points in the race, if a driver has done a misdemeanor, has cut the course at a certain point, they'll get a big red bar over the top of their driver ID, which you can see above them right now, identifying who they are. That will tell them how much penalty they will have to serve over the course of the event. It may be 1 second's worth of penalty, it may be half a second's worth of penalty, but the more that they slow down and brake, and the car will have a ghosting effect as if it's ethereal, you will find that those drivers will be serving that penalty and making sure it's not added onto their time come the end of the event.
And of course, the one thing that you don't want at the end of the race is a penalty. Of course, 1 second, when you're not that familiar with racing, it doesn't sound like a lot, just 1 second, it's blink of an eye. But when you're really close at the end of the race, we've seen races before where we saw people go over the line side by side, and that's, barely a tenth of a second. So sometimes when you're fighting in a bigger pack, a 1 second, 2 second, 3 second penalty can really cost you dearly. So the thing that you're going to want is that absolutely nothing of a penalty remains behind at the end, and of course just get rid of the penalties as fast as possible.
And of course, you want to limit the mistakes here around this fantastic Laguna Seca circuit. One of the things that makes life very difficult here is that it's all about gravel and grass. This is a very California-inspired track. Of course, it's in Salinas, California. So what's that going to mean? Well, the grass is all scorched on the outside, and you've got gravel as well, which makes life really difficult. If you're running off, there is not much out there that's going to save you.
Definitely, it's still one of the very, very natural tracks out here. And as we see here, Mikael just barely on the curb, and you see already the car starting to rock up over the outside there. It's still a very natural circuit. It stays true to its roots with, basically no tarmac runoffs whatsoever. They did extend this AstroTurf that we see on the right side at the corkscrew. But that's about it. Everything else, pretty much, other than, improvements on safety barriers and catch fencing and all that, other than that, everything is pretty much still the same as it was, years back already.
Exactly, and there is so much that you can do and see and understand about this Laguna Seca circuit. I've seen many a very informative video about the history, say, of this circuit. As whoa, goodbye, Chris Spiteri. That's what happens when you go side by side through that very, very difficult corner. It's almost the chin that we see right now here from this circuit, and you could say that the corkscrew is the nose. If you turn the mini-map there on the right-hand side over 180 degrees, it looks almost like a face as you look to try and scale your way up the mountain, some would say, towards that fabled corkscrew corner. But there is so much available here, and we are going to be moving over to qualifying in just a minute's time here, ladies and gentlemen. So there is so much more that can be going on, will be going on, and let's talk qualifying. It's 15 minutes worth of time. You get the opportunity to put a fresh set of boots on. You try and put the fastest time possible. It gives you, Nicholas, the best possible chance of winning this event.
Most definitely. To finish first you have to finish, but of course, at the start, the further you're in front, the better your chances to stay out of trouble, of course. You know, you don't want a lot of people close to you, especially in the first corner. It goes this really nice downhill way, you know, around the first bend, and then, of course, the first proper corner, a hard braking zone, 180-degree corner, and a lot can go wrong there. So, you know, you want clean air as much as possible, and just stay out of trouble for the first couple laps.
It's so easy for things to go wrong here in racing. It's so unpredictable, and it's that unpredictable nature which makes racing so, so very fun. And there have been so many masters of that fabled unpredictability that have gone on to create legacies and wonder. And, well, how much wonder was there, say, a week ago with the Formula One and Pierre Gasly's first win? That is what racing is all about, Nicholas. It's that unpredictability factor that racing can bring up. And Laguna Seca can make many a fabled driver look like a mortal.
Most definitely. And just generally, when you look back, there's been so many interesting races here. Not just, of course, kart, for example, you know, the old Champ Car series, but also, you know, the old American Le Mans series. I think one of the most iconic finishes when the Corvette and the Porsche crashed across the line. And, you know, after how many hours they were already on the track, it still came down to that photo finish, which ended with a collision. So, you know, you can have so many good races here, multi-class, single class, and of course, you know, a normal, like, one brand, one make trophy. And you see these people here just coming into the corkscrew, one big pack. Of course, it's not the fastest way, but of course, from the start, you want to be as far ahead as possible. Maybe even give yourself a bit of a window, or maybe just try to go straight for the slipstream, because with these cars, they have less aerodynamics, so they don't have that much of a dirty air effect.
This is called jostling for track position. Let's go on board then with Rike and take a lap around the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca circuit here as they head up the hill. This is turn number 1 here, the small kink left. It doesn't do anything. You're flat through here, and now you hit the brakes. You jam it on hard. You get a little bit of help from the anti-lock braking system that's in these vehicles through the Andretti hairpin turn number 2. Now you start to make your way through the next section of track. Turn 3 obscured by my face as you go on through. That's a lot of anti-cut curb through there. You've got to be so smooth through that section. Now turn number 4 starts to file on through. There goes Mikhail down the inside. If there was any a time where you need to make qualifying work, the last thing you want here, Nicholas, is drivers coming through at you at turn 4 into turn 5, running wide, allow Shalinu through. The lap for Rike is firmly abandoned.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think as soon as Mikhail just came through, like, come on, make some space. You messed up the last corner, and I'm not going to wait around behind you. I think Rike just conceded a little bit, and now coming into the corkscrew here at the end of Rail Straight, you can see how much the car gets compressed there, now into Rainy Curve. Of course, it's a bit overshadowed by the corkscrew right in front, but this is such a tricky corner. The entire force of the car just wants to get pushed to the outside. You can barely get it turned in, and then when you go too wide, you just spin off like we saw just before qualifying. Now coming through turn 10 and now turn 11 here. That's a very clean run there from Mikhail and Shalinu, both of them. And Rike now going to start his first flying lap after his last lap got abandoned. But there we go, Shalinu half a second faster pretty much than Mikhail. And of course Rike with his abandoned lap, 2 seconds off. Mr. Colin 1 second behind that. And Chris Spiteri now in P3. Very interesting, people coming bit after bit after bit here. And Yeah, but of course we haven't seen the prime punches from everyone yet.
We certainly haven't, but the key there in terms of that opening lap there, Nicholas, was all about slipstream for Shalin, who was tucked in nicely behind Mikhail for the entirety of the lap. That gave the opportunity for Shalinu just to do one thing and one thing only, just sit, wait, and follow the lines of arguably the most talented driver in the field, who was effectively pulling him along like, say, you would do in the Tour de France, which is going on right now. So everybody's looking at trying to get the best opportunity. When you've got an open session like this, it may just be find the quickest driver and just stay behind. You might get an advantage.
Yeah, most definitely. And we also see Mikhail now behind Rike again. So, it's not looking too well for him right now. And there we go. There's a penalty already. That is Shelino ahead. And that didn't go to plan for him. There we go. There's the ghost effect that you addressed earlier. And he's delivering that now, so he doesn't have to worry about anything to get now a clean run through the last corner. We see here, I think that was because he got a bit too much on the edge there through the corkscrew. And yeah, of course, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for the system to determine if you gained a lot of time there or if you gained any time at all. And there's a lot of different, calculations going through that system, of course. It calculates, your speed overall, your speed compared to against the average of the lap time before. And of course, with the track limits, it's very difficult in these extreme situations to get it perfectly right all the time.
Exactly, John Varro improving in 8th position at a 1:29.3 over the line. Mr. Collins down in 7th. Black Sky has moved up into 5th place in qualifying, just behind Rike, who jumped up to 4th, and Ivan, who is in 3rd. That will be an abandoned lap from Shalinu, pushing a little bit too hard through turn number 5. And you can join World Pro Racing's community by following us on all our social media platforms. It's going too fast for me to say all of it. We've got weekly casual races, special events, championships, the whole kit and caboodle as we go on through. Every driver looking for times. The man is looking to be the man again, but 4th position right now. That's not bad at all on a 1:28.4. Has to find a 10th of a second here to get to Mikhail, who is currently in 3rd position. Ivan has just jumped up into 2nd. Shalinu currently at the top of the timing stands right now, but of course we are just approaching that halfway stage here in qualifying. We're about 1 minute and 20 seconds away from that. And what's been key about this early stage of qualifying, drivers going for lap upon lap upon lap, weathering these GT4 tyre compounds in.
Yes, and it's always the difficulty of actually seeing, when it is too much for those tires. You want to get the maximum duration out of it. You want to put the most amount of laps in because, of course, we don't have limited amount of tire sets here, so you can just put out a new set. It's not going to cost you a single penny. So, you want to get a lot of time out of these tires, though, because pitting, it takes some time. And you have some people here already pitting for new tires because they just think, maybe with a new compound, I should probably be a bit faster by now. But Rike, Daman, Shalinu, Ivan, Mikhail, the top 5, they're all staying out. They're still going for another couple runs. And that's very interesting to see because that somehow, it shows a bit of confidence in these tires, The longer they can stay out, the longer they can push on the limit, Maybe there's already starting to play a bit of mind games here as well. That Rike there, we can see him sliding a little bit wide on the brakes here. That is a sign of worn out tires as well, so, maybe a bit too much pokering is not too good here either.
Well, there's a number of factors that goes into what's the right decision, as there is Jean Varro off there at the very, very difficult turn number 6 out on track. It's so tough to get that one correct. It's a one-line suits all. But Mikhail back to the top on a 27.7. Jumped a 10th of a second ahead of Shalinu there with that one. That is well done by Mikhail in the velocity machine, and looking for so much more of a gap than 1/10. It's worth noting that the top 6 are currently within 1 second of your leader at this stage in qualifying. And we talk about drivers like Rike, for example, who had the track position to start in qualifying. Well, he's just done a 28.5. It keeps him in 5th place for the moment. But the more that you start making mistakes, the more pressure that you put on yourself with those times that come in. It's so easy just to compound errors again and again and again. it's qualifying. So all of these drivers will be looking at this going, I just need a clear mind to go for a one clear lap.
And of course, that's easier said than done. Look at Cellino there, completely at the edge, barely just hanging on to the curb there on the outside. You have to push so hard on the limit for these corners, and it's really difficult to do because on that turn 6 curb, in that corner on the inside, you have a huge anti-cut. When you hit that, you get sent wide immediately. And there's one of these sausage curbs on the inside again. He's staying plenty away from that to get some more momentum out of there. And very nice and clean here. It just stays on the right edge of the curb there. And now through the last corner with a clean run. I don't know if he's right on the lap at this moment, but even then, it's a very nice way to usher these new tyres in.
Mikael there was in the wall out to the final corner and leaves the room. So that's going to be interesting. Needs to get back then in the next remaining 5 minutes to claim that position at the front. So for temporarily, everybody shifts up a position here. Cellino on pole, Ivan currently in second, and Deman in third position. It's not often that we see things happen, but sometimes drivers do run into issues of the technical variety, and that doesn't do too well. Improvements there for Rike, up to a 28.1. Back in comes Mikael, and we'll be looking to try and find those times up there at the very top again after the issues that have been seen earlier on. So everybody's searching for times. Ilwindi, not to be confused with Windy Boy, who had been winning a couple of these challenge events earlier on in the season, is now up into 5th position.
Yeah, and very close to the competition as well. We see here that the gaps are around like 0.2 per position. So overall, of course, after a lot of places go down, you arrive at over a second and stuff, but still, overall, these positions are quite close together, and Ilwindi here, just pretty much 1500s, less than 1500s behind P4, behind the man in his beautiful old retro livery Newman Porsche. Very, very well known. And there's that sausage curve that I said about earlier. It's really tricky to get that right because you want to get as far inside as possible, carry the most amount of speed through that, but this 1 millimeter too much and it's instantly sending you wide.
It can very easily send you wide, and it could be very difficult, and drivers will have to be very careful about how they race on this event today, because there are stewards today watching these events, as always do with World Pro Racing. Adrian Fagaio and George Muscat comfortably sitting and watching as we get a look at an automated pit stop here on the Gran Turismo Sport system. You can see the crews get themselves out, get themselves ready. They will have tyres, they will have fuel if it's needed, and they will get themselves into the box and ready to serve that in the not too distant future. In comes Ilwindi, just riding through the lane there, getting on the gears and back off and away again, hopefully in the not too distant future. There we go, and then onto pit exit and away you go for that being a pit stop. But what we've been talking about just that little bit earlier on is that some of these drivers will be looking at how these times are going down and saying, well, we need the race to work out for us. We need to make sure that we've got exactly what we need moving on forward into the next couple of runs. And with 3 minutes to go, anyone who has come in and pitted and looked for tyres and looked for strategy to work out in favour, well, now's where you've got to put the money on the table and say, well, we've gone and done the flop, we've reached the turn, it's time to get to the river. Deman, 27.8 for the time being, that's top of the times.
He really is the man. What a lap time there, just out of nowhere. He was a bit more silent there in P4, but now, nice lap there. I think that should be probably around a 4/10 improvement. I think overall it's still slower than Mikael's lap, if I am looking at it correctly, because I think, so Mikael should normally still retain pole position, but still very, very interesting. That yellow flag overtaking prohibited, so that is not going to be so nice there. But look at this very nice line there from the man, a late apex, so he just makes sure that he doesn't run off the track at the exit there.
Of course, we were talking about how these stewards, Adrian Fagaio and George Muscat, are from the Motorsport Federation, the Malta Motorsport Federation. They are FIA accredited stewards as well, so they have seen it all, they have done it all, they have been to events all across Europe. They know what it means to steward, and they know how these drivers are going to need to behave here today. There is Cellino currently in second position. John Varro on a 29.1 remains in 8th position after that time, but Cellino there is going to be trying to do everything possible to try and close down what is on gap 300ths of a second only. 1 minute 35 to find it. There is 2 opportunities. Kasha finds improvement there on a 130.7. That's not going to be enough to get inside the top 8, but Shalinu is looking closest to making something happen.
And his line looks very, very clean there on the outside. He's taking the outside curb for the entry there. Maybe he could have taken a bit more momentum for this, but he just wants to make sure that for turn 10, he is perfectly on the racing line. That was once again very clean. It looks very nice and tidy so far, but yeah, also very nice exit here. But still, again, a bit tight. I think he could have taken a bit more curb, a bit more track on the outside there to go a bit faster. But is it going to be enough? No, it's not going to be enough quite yet.
Well, one more opportunity is left then for Shalinu, hitting the brakes, little wiggle into the Andretti hairpin there, so you can see how much he's trying to work with the car, get the car settled as you are slowly lisking over to that right-hand side to take that turn. But now into turn number 3, Shalinu's trying to get things working under the Cooper Tyres bridge and in towards turn number 4 now. You're starting to build that momentum for turn 5. You're gearing yourself up, gearing yourself up. This whole lap is so centric and so focused with that fantastic corkscrew. Black Sky jumps up to 5th place then in qualifying. After that one, has time for one more lap. 15 seconds remaining on the clock. You can start any lap that you finish as long as you are going to be before the times, but Shalinu's pushing really wide through turn number 6, and that might just be some time loss there, going and dipping 2 tyres into the grass on the outside. There's the corkscrew, nice and gentle, as my good friend Reese Gardner would say, moving through the left right now of turn number 9, and 10 and 11, the timer has expired here in qualifying. The man is not on a flying lap, so the finish is going to be there. You can see it just flashed up on your screen. Finish, that's where we're going to be. Chris Spiteri cannot go any quicker than 7th position, but can Shalinu find the time that gives 300ths in the right direction? It's going to be close as the checkered flag is waved, and is it going to be enough? The answer to that is no. Shalinu could not improve on that time. There is demand. The question becomes, is car in 3rd position on a lap right now? Ivan Birmingham just heading to the corkscrew right now, has a minute to try and find that time, but has gone straight on there at the corkscrew corner, and that's not good enough then. Moving up in the times is Rike up into 3rd position. He's pipped out Ivan out by 100th of a second. Black Sky improved on the last lap and is looking to do so all over and again here in the number 50 machine. First showing here with World Pro Racing, and remains in 5th place with that one overall. So that pretty much will bring qualifying over to a close, and there are a lot of talking points to go through in qualifying. The man at the moment is provisionally the fastest in qualifying, even though Mikhail did have the quickest time overall in the session. But of course, dropping out of the session to back in, Mikhail does not retain 1st position here in the qualifying. But Nicholas, we have to talk about this. This is going to be a very entertaining race. Those top 4, they are split by not very much.
Most definitely. It's a very close qualifying once again. And at the very end, of course, a terrible case of commentator's curse there for Ivan. And yeah, I think Shalinu, he had a good run so far, but in turn 6, I think, that was that inside curb once again. That was the time that he would have needed, I think, to make that jump to P1 in the session, to get past the man, but it just wasn't quite enough. So very big shame for him. But either way, P2, it's still not a bad position to start from.
An even bigger shame will be the fact that Mikhail will not be taking to the starting grid and will be not taking to this 25-lap race. So Daman in control. They are under an automated system right now. When they get the green to go at the start-finish line, they will be racing for 25 laps worth of action here today. There's the countdown, 3, 2, 1, and let's get ourselves going then. 25 laps here at Laguna Seca, brought to you by World Pro Racing. Here is the man at the front of the field. They've got roughly 1 second here that they have of advantage. They hit the brakes into the first corner, and that is immediately a missed apex from Daman going through the Andretti hairpin, and all of a sudden that pressure tells when you're at the front of the field. Chris Spiteri there in 7th place. There's a natural gap forming here between the front 6 and the rest of the pack here, the 10 that are racing here for this one and looking for a top 3 overall. Daman has already been reeled back into 3/10. Shalinu on a charge.
Yeah, Shalinu is really not looking to mess about here. Oh, and that is slide their contact there even. And now Rike is, of course, sitting right behind that. I don't think that... Oh, no, he's actually looking to make a move there. Backs out of it again, though. But there we go already. The mental games, the stress, and the battling, it starts immediately as soon as you make a mistake once here.
This is such a very difficult track to overtake at. You make a mistake, you may be having to wait a couple corners to make that happen. The front four going through the corkscrew, demanding control at the front, but Shalinu looking very, very aggressive. Rike is there in third position, Ivan in fourth, and Shalinu looking the long way around there at the penultimate corner. Is now going to be on the wrong side of the circuit to make this one happen at the final corner. Turn 12, out on track. The man covering that line fantastically, and this is GT4 racing in a nutshell. Look at them, 1, 2, and 3 as they funnel on through. We look back from the engine bay. Normally it's the boot, it's not, it's the engine bay as they head towards turn number 1. You got to take the narrow line here, Daman, if you're going to cover it. Shalinu's looking down on the inside into the first couple of corners, and the Andretti hairpin finally gets it done. And is this going to be a case of freight trading with Rike? He's still fighting on the back here as Daman, looking for the inside at turn 3, but he can't quite find it.
And that's the really difficult part here, to have to defend through these corners. Of course, it's 90-degree corners. You can just park it on the apex, but when you have to carry momentum through these, it's just so difficult to keep up that momentum. And really, here, Schumacher Sonntag here into this corner. Oh, that was very, very close, and barely just a few little bits of contact, but it's really not going as the man would like it.
Wow, that's a bold move from Ivan, and it showed. Enrique still can't find a way through on Daman on the run up towards the fabled corkscrew corner. Ivan Birmingham has just pulled off the path of sim racing there, because you do not go around the outside of turn number 5 and make it work 3 wide. Well, Ivan says, we don't listen to your rules, we drive, and made that one happen. Rike again looking here for a way through, and again Daman has it covered and scouted. Clearly the qualifying pace is there, but the consistency being at the front, the race pace, it's just not available at the moment, and they can see Rike struggling with understeer a little bit there and dropping back. Black Sky now under a bit of pressure here in 5th position, because that's Ilwindi finding a way through, and so Black Sky has to just sit and wait there in 6th position, just 4.7 seconds off of the overall race lead.
And we have a lot of battles here down the line, and it's already very interesting to see. People always go instinctively to look down the inside a little bit, even if it's, still way too far away to make an attack. When they see people, they just don't follow completely in their line. They always try to look down the inside a little bit, and that is a quite big risk there, because sometimes that instinct still stays after you've already gotten past to try and defend that position. And I think that's what got caught out here with Rike earlier in turn 6, because he had that curb and the man was immediately able to counter there. And now Black Sky looking for the inside there, completely making the pressure, but that is a bit too much pressure for himself to handle. And yeah, once again, turn 6, it's the Grim Reaper of racing here. You just try to make a move down here, and it's just not working.
And that's why you do not go too wide into turn number 6. You can see Black Sky was compromised on the inside, was always going to run that outside track, and a couple of tyres in the grass did not help. The man still holding back Rike here as they battle on the brakes into the left-hand bend of turn 12 and pick up a run off the exit. Rike has, with aplomb as well. You'll see the numbers change in a moment with Rike trying to get alongside, but the man has just enough off the exit here to cover it back up. Rike has to tuck back into the toe to try and get the move done here at the Andretti hairpin. And again, looking the long way around this time is Rike trying to make this one happen. The man can just use all of the road available there. Slight little bit of contact, holds it together. Meanwhile, front 2 closing in. Ivan's on a charge.
Yeah, most definitely. And we could also see there on the defense of the man, he did learn from Shalino's move earlier. He did learn from it and stayed completely on the inside there. And we just don't know where to look. There's too many battles going on. Rike trying around the outside again there. And the man really trying to leave the space there. But of course, he has inertia because that car isn't weightless.
but the more that they battle, the more they're going to lose the front two. Look at the gap. It's already up at 3.7 seconds to the race leader for Daman. Enrique still hoping there's going to be a move here at the corkscrew. Looking at this one, there is Shalinu, and just behind Ivan, there in second position right now, trying to pick up as much as possible. Daman and Enrique, third and fourth, are effectively fighting for a prize right now, and they are hoping that they get it, but they can't afford to battle too hard, because there you saw a yellow flash in the background. There it is. That's Ilwindi. They've got to be careful about bringing Ilwindi back into the fight. Some side-by-side again, looking to take that line on the inside once more. There's penalty for Ivan to serve as well over the course of this one. 1 second's worth. 2, so that's not going to be ideal. But Rike here, this is when drivers get bogged down, frustrated, and this is where mistakes happen.
Yes, and of course it's quite difficult. I thought for a second there, that is Fronte, I think, actually. Yeah, but I thought for a second through the corkscrew there. There's the 1.3 second penalty. Shalino, he took a little bit too much AstroTurf on the run, just down through the 8A bit, so the right-hander bit of the corkscrew, and that's a mistake that is quickly done. So of course he has quite some time to still deliver that penalty, but it's still something that nags at you mentally. And there Ivan now going down the inside. Shalino, I think, is going to try and hold the over-under there, but look at that great run there. Looking completely on the left-hand side. Probably could have been a bit further on the right, but he goes in for a very nice move, carries all of the momentum, and he stays ahead. Now looking for the corkscrew again, and Shalino really playing the aggressive game here, but that once again very hard over that AstroTurf. And Daman and Rike are still fighting hard, still losing more and more time. Rike loses out a little bit, and if Rike isn't careful, in a couple of minutes, or depending on how it goes, even maybe seconds sometimes, he will not only have to handle with Daman, but also soon with the new man Porsche of Ilwindi.
Well, the key is that Ilwindi is actually falling behind despite how much they're battling. Shalinu's penalty down to 1.1 seconds then in terms of trying to serve, so that will be very, very useful, and just trying to whittle it off a tenth at a time. You've got laps to play with if you want to serve a penalty, but there is Daman at the moment. On the brakes they go into the Andretti hairpin. A bit of sideways there from Daman. Both drivers have gone in deep. Rike's going to pick the run up here off of the exit, going to ever so slightly pick up ahead, and now has to fight the outside of turn 3. It's a very tough place to hold it around the outside of 3, but that is well worked by Rike. If you can just get that inside before, it's still going to be fought by Daman all the way. Rike is trying everything, but they're going to go all the way now towards turn 5 out on track, which Ivan has made his corner right now. On the brakes they go, pretty much wheel to wheel as they went through. Daman on the outside, still trying to fight it, but resistance is futile. Rike, after an age of eternity, has finally found the place.
Yeah, that was a very nice run here, and it once again shows, get the drive done perfectly. Just stay calm in the car, just keep it not that exciting from the outside, but it is definitely the way to go, because he got a better drive out of turn 2, and then through the entire while, turn 3, 4, the place where it's very difficult to stay side by side, they stayed there without contact, and I think Daman, really desperate to try and stay around the outside, turned in a bit too early there, and that led to the contact that led to his demise in this fight.
This is Black Sky in 6th position. Behind that, Mr. Colin in 7th, who is dealing with Jean Varro in the fight for 8th place. We're going on to lap 7. No takers into the lane as of yet in this race, and it has been very much a case of drivers trying to figure out who's my battle partner and where do we go and race. So Ivan here, currently in the lead, knows he's got 1 second to play with Shalini behind, but that penalty will be served time and time again. The key, though, is that Ivan has the track position, so effectively he can do a number of things. If Shalinu wants to come in and make a stop, he can cover it off on the next lap. If he wants to come in and make the stop, well, he's got free track and free reign to go and make that decision.
They're already seemingly starting to struggle with the tires, so I think it's going to be a bit interesting to see how they will deal with that, how long they will stay out, because of course they've been battling for the entire race. When you're constantly having to press on the tire grip just to stay side by side with someone, or to make that late braking maneuver down the inside or around the outside, the tires are not going to like that too much, as Mr. Colin there, another victim of turn 6, and then up the A-hole straight. And yeah, I think just trying to get a better run through turn 6 from John Varro. And now the opposite here. You know, of course, the inside is dangerous, but stay too far outside, and it's instantly going to be, oh, that's another one. And that is out of Rainy Curve, if I'm correct. Yes. And yeah, he's getting caught out by all the difficult corners now. I think he has to find his rhythm again a little bit. And Ilwindi is now in the pit lane already. Lap 7. And at the moment, that would look like a 2 or, well, 3 stop, maybe even. Because that is a bit short of a run for a 2-stop, but maybe he's going to make the next 2 a bit longer there for, you know, for the sake of, yeah, just pitting earlier after all these battles at the start.
Well, that's going to be very, very key in terms of how this one is going to go. So pitting in from what was 5th position at the time is Ilwindi, so he's going through. Now, Mr. Collins moving on to the medium compound tyre. That's going to be very, very key in terms of fuel then. If they can go, what, 8 laps for half a tank, that's going to be 16, 17 laps then that we'll be seeing on a full tank of fuel here in this race, which means that every driver must stop at least once here in this one. So those who are pitting early may just get an advantage moving on to the medium compound tyre, having that little extra bit of tyre life to go and play with. I want to go on board with the race leader right now, Ivan. He's now pulled out a gap of 2 seconds at the moment, and I want to just bring up some... Oh, I was going to say, let's bring up how the tyres look, but he's down in on the lane right now. So he's coming in. Shalinu is also coming down in on the lane. Rike then, for the time being, will stay out a little bit longer here in this one, but the key here is that Shalinu lost about 1.5 seconds over the course of that lap.
I think he also tried to deliver his penalty there while he was at it, and yeah, a lot of different strategies coming into play here now. Of course, as soon as he saw Ivan coming in, I think Shalino wanted to reply immediately. They're losing so much time now, having to refuel as well, of course. Even Chris Piteri's gone past, even John Varro has gotten past, so that's a rough estimate of, you know, how long you actually stay in the pit lane here. Even Ilwindi has actually gone past both of them, so that's quite interesting to see. Mr. Collin as well, actually, so they must have refueled quite a bit.
No, I will correct you, because one of the reasons why they've jumped ahead is because of how that pit exit negotiates its way back out onto track. Of course, it goes through turn 1 and to the Andretti hairpin and back out again. So Ivan 4th, Shalinu in 5th. They jump ahead of Chris Pateri and John Varro, mainly because of that. The penalty isn't fully served at the moment by Shalinu, but crucially, he's brought the gap down in the stop by about a second there in terms of how he has dealt with that. That's key, because that means that Shalinu's going to have less fuel and probably needs to fuel save over the course of this next run. Now, this is Rike. He's due to come down into the pits. This is lap 9 here out of 25, and is actually going to stay out a little bit longer. I want to go on board, and I want to see the in-car controls right now, the overlay that will be seen, that the drivers will have access to as they are driving. You can see there on the left-hand side, right next to the overall clock counter, you can see how much the tyres are wearing. It's the front, which look like they're going, and mainly the right-hand side tyres. There's about 60% of the life left in the tyre, and you don't need any Amazon graphics to tell you how much tyre life has gone out of those.
I'm gonna be honest, it's actually quite impressive how he's still able to do these laps, because overall, other people already had dropping grip quite a lot, but he seems to be completely fine so far, you know, and as it looks right now, he seems to be pushing, so with the fuel load it would fit at the moment. Maybe he goes for one longer pit stop, then tries to be in clean air for a bit, but if he doesn't pit again, that would be a huge gain in time, of course.
It certainly would, and that's something that's worth keeping in mind. And I just did notice something actually there on that graphic as we looked at that one going forward, and I saw a little AT, and if AT means what I think it is, I think that Rike drives with an automatic transmission, so he doesn't have to change the gears.
Yeah, would probably make sense as well, and to be honest, his inputs, from time to time, they look a bit controller-like, you know, but that could still be a wheel. Yeah, that could be a wheel. I don't quite know, to be honest.
It's just a case of, you can see, normally when you see an overlay like this here in Gran Turismo Sport that has manual transmission, you get the red bars or a red number there on the right-hand side, meaning that this is the gear that you should be in. If you've got an automatic transmission, for example, which, say, someone like Rike has, and normally drivers look to go to a manual transmission to flick through the gears and have more control of what gear they're driving in, it's just a case here for Rike where he's just looking to maybe make life simpler, maybe focus a little bit more on different corners. He slightly missed the apex there at turn number 3. That won't be very useful, but every single lap, now he has less things to worry about than, say, someone else does who maybe has to flick through a flappy paddle gearbox on their steering wheel.
And overall, the car overall looks like the Cup GT4 Porsche, to be honest. So technically, since that thing normally comes with a PDK, so a dual clutch gearbox, it would also make sense to have automatic mode in it. Of course, when you're in a real race car, you probably never use it, but it's still not that unrealistic there to have an automatic one.
Here's a little battle on screen for you right now. Black Sky's got Jean Varo for a little bit of company, and that won't be the best news in the world for Black Sky in the 50 machine, trying to pilot away through turn number 5 and up the hill, starting to attack. He's now starting to pull away as needed. But this is all about the keys to this race. Who has got what they want? I will say that between Ivan and Shalinu, who are effectively your race for the lead at this point in time here, I want to have a little look at Shalinu's penalty points, because at the moment, the last time I saw it, there you go. It's just been fully served. This now becomes a straight dogfight.
Yeah, and they're really not showing any hesitation of backing off there. Cellino, he tries to stay as close as possible. Now coming down this turn 1 bend, hard into the brakes now for the Andretti hairpin, and it stays for now with these 6, 5, and maybe, going down a bit now. No, he got a bit worse of a run out of turn 2, sorry there. And Cellino's really pushing, and I think Ivan knows this as well. I think Ivan really just trying to stay calm here, just trying to put the optimal lines here and then just keep up his current pace, because it's seemingly enough to stay ahead at the moment and just rest easy on his tires, because I think he knows Rike is going to go for that one stop, and if he wants to have any chance, he's going to have to make this a quite quick one.
The key, though, is that there's 15 seconds worth of gap between Rike and Ivan at the moment here in this race. Ivan has the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:27.5, but Rike will stay out for a 13th lap in this event. We are officially over the halfway stage in this race, and there will be, of course, now just 12 laps to go when they cross the line. In comes the man. Crucially, was on the medium compound tyre coming into this stint, so that would have explained why he was struggling over the early part of this stint. He was not on the most optimal tyre. He was on maybe the second most optimal tyre of the 3. Of course, there's the green hard tyres, which you can go to, but nobody's choosing that one today. So now this becomes a case of, well, I think I'm staying on the medium compound tyre, but now what do I need to do? I need to get out and going and make sure I'm running my race.
I was quite curious actually to see if maybe he would change his strategy now to go for a soft tire, because overall I think if we did see correctly, I think Rike was on the soft tires. That would explain as well why he could go that pace, but just how smooth he must have driven to keep those tires alive until now is just beyond me.
The tables have turned. It's now Ivan who has the slowdown penalty. 0.3 of a second worth, with Shalinu harassing the back through turn number 6, and now up the hill looking for the small right of 7, which makes life very difficult braking for turn number 8. One of the things that doesn't get talked about actually with the corkscrew and how difficult it is actually that braking entry that you see as Rike finally decides to depart down in onto the pits. Nothing left in the tank to work with. So this is going to be crucial here in terms of how this all stacks up. It looks like Ivan and Shalini will be playing a 2-stop. Rike on a 1-stop on the soft compound tyre has done very, very well over this stint, and this will be a very, very easy or interesting battle, I should say. See how this one goes on. Ivan's got a lot to serve. There go on the tyres of the Continental Cars Limited Porsche, and now just waiting for the fuel to be pumped in and then out and away again. Chris Spiteri will also dive in on the medium compound tyres as well, so now this becomes a real battleground.
And I think it's going to be the interesting part now. He gets out on the mediums this time.
Hello.
What? He stayed out over half of the race on the soft tires, and now he's changing to the mediums. That's a very interesting strategy. And I would dare say that maybe it is the wrong strategy, because if he could make the tires last this long on softs, then he probably could have made it last, you know, just on the softs again.
But you have to also remember it's all about comfort, and if you're racing late in the event and you are struggling, say, oh, as Ivan has a big wiggle there on the anti-cut there and the AstroTurf on the outside, he's done well to save it. I was going to say, if you are going to be racing and you are racing in such a way where you need to have tyre life at the end, if you are going to need to battle, what would you rather have? A soft tyre that maybe you're going to struggle and spin on, or a medium tyre that's going to make life a little bit more tougher to make the one-stop work? But you know that you've got a little bit of comfort there, knowing that you have tyre to use come the end of the event. That's the catch-22 that Rike found himself in, and thought, you know what, the medium tyre might be good. Battle for the race lead, though, firmly on. Shalinu is making sure that Ivan is not serving anything. But look at where Rike came out. Ilwindi there in 4th, Black Sky in 5th. This is a battle 3rd, 4th, 5th, 4 position.
Yeah, most definitely, and I think the others are all on soft tires, so it's really going to be fascinating to see now how those medium tires will serve Rike, if it's really the right choice, because at the moment they're gaining quite a bit of ground on him, but, well, actually, yeah, it seems, you know, a bit equal right now, but Black Sky seems to be gaining on Windy quite a bit, so, you know, Rike is not going to be the one to need a battle right now. I think he wants to stay in clean air right now and just, you know, do his single stop strategy and just get into the finish.
John Varro in the pits then, from what was 7th position, going to stay on the medium compound tyres, went 15 laps on the stint, which is a very commendable effort. Now, this is what I was trying to point out a little earlier on as we look at Mr. Colin right now, who is just ahead of these drivers you're leading to. Ivan and Shalinu here at the front of the field who have returned it. There is Kasha there in 10th position, down at the bottom of the field, and effectively 1 lap down at this stage of the race. What I was going to talk about is how Ivan is struggling to serve those 0.3 of a second of penalty, because where can you serve it when your nearest rival is right behind you?
At the same time, there we go, 0.2 gone, but you know,
Doors open.
with the gap this close, and yeah, I think that might be Shalino's special move here again, down to turn 2, just on the braking. He's trying to hold around on the outside, Ivan, and goes for a wider line. I think he's gonna try and get more momentum on the exit, but a bit too wide, and that's a very nice and clean move from Shalino for the lead.
It absolutely is, and that was all done by Ivan, just making a small mistake there, serving the penalty, and then both of them running off then. Jalinu there, almost contact between them, and now they're almost too wide, going through turn number 4. Ivan's got to think about attack. Keep the driver unsettled. That's the Valentino Rossi way. On the brakes, around the outside, he'll try again at turn 5. It's his marquee move here at Laguna Seca, but he can't quite find it. He stays behind, and that 1/10 he can serve at any time between now and lap 25. He knows what he needs to do, and there's even a little bit of flashing of lights there in the background to say, I'm using every distraction tactic in the book.
Yeah, the flashing of lights, usually a signal to let lapped cars know that you're coming by. But yeah, Ivan, for example, you know, he's using it as a nice psychological play, like sticking it down the inside here through Rainy Curve, and now he makes it around the outside for turn 10. It just barely touches the gravel on the left side, but they're both heading into the pits now.
Oh, this is fantastic stuff. So this is where the 2-stop strategy comes into play. Here they will have themselves about 8 laps to work with when they get through with it. Shalinu ahead of Ivan, but crucially, Shalinu in all of that exchange picked up half a second's worth of slowdown penalty. This will put Rike back into the race lead then of this event, but they'll bring tyres on, they'll bring fuel, and now they've got one big task left remaining here, Nicholas. They have to chase down Rike on the 1-stop.
And that'll be quite a difficult task, I think. He's been clean so far. And of course, since Ilwindi now went to the pits as well, you know, it's nothing really keeping him held up anymore. And he is quite a sizable gap in front as well. That worked perfectly, that strategy.
Well, you can see where they're going to come out. There is the man who is in 3rd position classified at the moment, but is going to come out right in the middle of all of this. And crucially here, Cellino is going to be the first to try and get through it. 2/10 penalty to serve then for Deman at the moment, who of course is also on that one stop. So this is a battle for position. Deman is going to have to try and hold these drivers back. But what's the key for Cellino? What's the key for Ivan? They're going to have fresh sets of soft compound tyres, which is going to mean they're going to be aggressive. Ivan's run slightly wide there through turn number 5. So Cellino looking like he's got to get really aggressive and now quickly gets a 10th of the penalty served and up the hill to the corkscrew.
And the man, the next one who's on a one stop. So this is also for overall position. All the pit stops that need to be made for them have been done here normally. So this is gonna go on until the end, folks. This is gonna be quite interesting to see. They're all with a bit of penalty here. Ivan's losing his nerve a little bit, dropping out a little bit, but with the battle going on here, and that is Cellino once again with an over and under move. Now trying it around the outside. Both of them are serving a bit of their penalty. Both of them ghosting there under the brakes, but the man is now rid of his penalty. So he's now in the slipstream, but right behind him is Ivan as well. None of them have room to make any mistake. And down we go once more down the hill towards the dirty hairpin.
Oh, and down the inside, Ivan's going to look to try and be aggressive. He's got 0.0 to serve, so he's still got a little bit. So does Cellino. Black Sky is coming. That's going to make life easier then. So now there's just one car to chase down. But that was almost the case there of both drivers, both at the front and at the back now of this pack. Deman and Cellino both going there, Nicholas. No, I don't want that position. I'll serve some penalty instead. And then both of them found, oh, we're still side by side. Okay, let's go. Rike, mind you, he's still got 12 seconds of margin here to hold on to with a handful of laps to go. So what that's going to mean here for these drivers like Cellino and Ivan, they've got to chase it over a second a lap.
That is quite a gap to get rid of. Overall, I don't think that they will be able to pull that, especially if they're busy battling each other. There was Ivan, I think, just barely braking on the edge of the gravel up on the hill. Just barely completely absolved of his penalty, but look at how close he got to that sausage curb there. He's really pushing to at least get past Cellino, but really, Rike made this strategy work perfectly. It's still a bit dubious why he went to the medium tires after doing over half of the race distance on softs, but it apparently is working.
It apparently is, but look at how that gap is coming down here. You've seen it on the left-hand side of the timing tower. Ivan's gap to Rike is down under 13 seconds for Cellino, who's now 1.4 seconds clear of Ivan right now with a bit of a buffer behind to the nearest two-stop strategy driver. It's a case now of that gap down to 11.4 seconds, and that gap up at the top of the corkscrew for Rike was up at 13. This is happening at a rate which I think is enough to catch in the very late stages of this race, but we've got 7 laps worth of racing action and 11 seconds to close down. It's got to be 1.5, 1.6 seconds a lap, you would feel, to bring that gap all the way down. Rike has just got to drive this one cleanly and calmly to bring this one through. You can see the gap, 11 seconds exactly almost, going into the corkscrew.
And you can really see him there, once again driving cleanly, driving without taking any risks whatsoever. He's just driving, he's just letting the car just dance slowly around the circuit. You can see how much more aggressive they are here, you know, you see how much more inside they are. You can see the car just that little bit more violently. It just gets into the springs as they just go down on that elevation out of the corkscrew. And both of them are really pushing to maybe even catch Rike, but mostly, of course, Cellino wants to gap from Ivan. And Ivan, of course, wants to keep that from happening.
Exactly, that's going to be crucial here for Ivan's race. Got to try and be aggressive. Got to try and gain some places. They lap Mr. Collin, who's just coming out of the pits right now, here in what is 9th position. So they've got more work to do in terms of chasing down this race. But Ivan is keeping a gap steady to Cellino. There is Deman in 4th place. He's still got 1.3 seconds of penalty that he needs to serve. But what's the crucial fact? He's got 22 seconds to the next driver, which is Black Sky. So has all the time in the world to find that sort of pace. And Black Sky's not out of the woods just yet either. Ilwindy there, you can see, is just 1.2 seconds back. And the top 5 is not secure.
Black Sky can't medal with Daman, but once again with a new man, with the new man Porsche of Ilwindy behind him, And I think he would rather be closer to Darman, though, because, well, at the moment he's gaining some good time. But, of course, with these cars, when on edge, of course, they don't have that much aero grip. So the mechanical grip on this is everything they have. And if you just miscalculate once, as we see the gap go down here quite a bit for Rike now, actually, you can lose quite some chunks of time. And Rike slowly losing some time here compared to Shalinu and Ivan. But I think at this rate, he is going to stay ahead.
Well, it's 5 laps to go, and the gap is down to 9.2 seconds right now. It's got to be a case of 1.8 seconds a lap. Mr. Colin gets out of the way for Ivan right now, but look at the time that Ivan's lost, being stuck behind Mr. Colin. Then over the course of that stint, he's lost 2 seconds to Shalinu. Any chance of Ivan finding a race win is going to be completely out the door. He's going to be looking at maybe 3rd place in the final prize in the pool. So there's lots more to be done in terms of this race. Shalinu here is fighting for a race win. Rike here is trying to hold on. That gap has not really moved over the course of this lap. It has stayed at 9.2 seconds, but it's up the hill where Shalinu here has really been finding those gains against Rike.
Yeah, I think the soft tires really have the edge over the medium tires once you start going up the hill here after turn 5 through turn 6 and then the corkscrew, and I think especially Rainy Curve, because it's so difficult there. The way that corner goes, it doesn't really have an on-camber factor. It's not quite off-camber, but the way they go down through that, it has an off-camber effect because the G-forces just want to carry that car outside. And you want every bit of mechanical grip there. And I think the soft tires are far better in those corners, delivering that edge of the line grip, than the medium tires of Rike.
This has been a good lap there for Rike this time by. You can see how the gap is down to 8.5 seconds. It was only 1 second's lost then that Rike has managed to do. If he can keep it at 1 second, he's got exactly what he wants. Now he's asking Shalinu, you've got to find 2 seconds a lap and more to even get close to me. This is all down on Rike here, but there's one key factor that changes absolutely everything in this race, and that's the P word, pressure. Because the closer that Shalinu gets, the more pressure is put on Rike, and Rike then will be looking back at the relative going, well, that gap's coming down. I've got to be maybe a little bit more concerned about how I'm driving. That's when you tell the mark between a good driver and a great driver, because a great driver deals with pressure.
Most definitely, but I think Rike knows how much pressure is to put right now. That was a bit more aggressive than we've seen before.
Yellows.
But overall, yeah, yellows, that's something happened there. Yeah, someone's stopped there. That was 10th place, I think. Yep, that's Kasha. So, another victim of turn 6, I presume.
Yep,
and yes,
just too wide off the exit, and trying to save it, gets back on track, and whoopsie daisy, round you go for a 360 spin. That's never quite what you want, and you might need a few more wings if you are going to get yourself out of that sort of trouble. And there is the big key, the gap remaining at 8.3 seconds. Rike is 3 laps away from victory here. It's going to have to take a miracle right now for Shalinu to get anywhere near, and it looks like the top 3 are close. It looks like today the strategy of one stop might have been the right call for a lot of drivers here. Not many have chosen to take that one stop. They thought the 2 stop may have been quicker, but the key on that final stint is how that medium has really held up as a tyre compared to the soft, which I think Shalinu has pretty much used a lot of the tyre life out of.
yeah, it definitely seems that way. I think it was very impressive how Rike was able to go 13 laps on these rubbers, but yeah, I think maybe in his mind, you know, and just generally from his experience over that long stint, he just, on the edge, he just felt that the car was a bit too unpredictable with these softs, especially on the longer run. So maybe he just went for the more stable, the safer option for the medium tires. That might have been the case here. And so far, it's working out. It's once he's over the line now, only 2 laps to go, and 8.7 seconds. I think 4.5 seconds, that's not something that you can just easily gain over 2 laps at Laguna Seca.
No, you need a mistake, and Rike is not making any of those at the moment because the delta is starting to turn the other way. He is starting to gain time on Shalinu. He's got more life to work with, and that consistency and that calmness right now that we are seeing off of Rike right now is doing just enough. That gap up now to 9 seconds. Let's keep a little look though on that 5th and 6th place battle, see how close that was looking. It was looking close, but now it isn't. Ilwindy's made a couple of mistakes here. That gap's up now to 8.5 seconds here. So Ilwindy, I think, is resigned to a fate outside of the top 5 here in this event, and that will be a little bit disappointing after looking like, okay, knocking on the door after that final stint.
Yeah, but as I said, sometimes when you push the tires a little bit too long, it can start being a bit unpredictable. So the harder the tires are worn, of course, the more they struggle for grip. And if you push them too much, if you have to struggle too much for grip, of course, the car is a lot more on edge then, while actually going slower. It just doesn't have the same amount of grip as it would have normally. And the big issue for that is it gets harder to control. It's, you know, a lot less safe to control on the edge, and the mistakes happen there. Because then you're out of your comfort zone, then you're pushing on the limit while not going that fast, still trying to go faster, and then the mistakes just keep piling up. And this man here in the picture, Rike, he has not been making any mistakes. He's driving completely within his comfort zone. It almost looks like he's even saving fuel on a cooldown lap with these lines, but, you know, the 9-second gap, it's there, and it's there to stay, it seems.
It certainly is. Here is the final lap then of the race at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, the official Maltese Gran Turismo Porsche Cayman GT4 Challenge presented by Continental Cars Limited. This has been a fantastic race for Rike over the course of this one. He's kept the car out of trouble. He did struggle to make overtakes in the early stages, but when drivers went onto a 2-stop strategy, he stuck to his guns and he has stayed on that 1-stop call. There are a lot of questions about whether moving from the soft compound to the medium compound was the right choice, and it seems at this stage the medium compound has been an absolute genius masterstroke, heading up the hill towards turn number 6. Mind the anti-cut curb on the inside of the corner, and effectively now just drive well within your means. For car number 37, this has been a fantastic drive here today, and one which I think has been a long time coming for the way that Rike has been driving, knocking on the door in many of these challenge series and saying, you know what, do not count me out of an event like this. Just turn 11 and turn 12 remain through the penultimate corner, and now the final one awaits for Rike, who has proven to everybody that he knows how to strategize this Porsche Cayman GT4. On the drag to the line, Rike will be incredibly happy. He's weaving already because he knows he has won by a fantastic bit of driving and strategy. Rike, your winner. Shalinu will feel what could have been. Drove a great race, but it is only second place over the line. And Ivan will come home with 3rd position overall in this one. Really, what can you say here, Nicholas? That was a case of trying to race that one hard, but 2 stops was never the way forward.
At the start of the race, I did say, don't drive spectacularly, drive calm and, you know, unspectacular. It will keep the tires alive, but Rike took these words apparently completely by heart and drove the entire race like this. You know, he had a bit of battling at the start, but the entire rest of the race he was calm, he was just not making any mistakes whatsoever, and he just kept it completely clean. And I think that was the big part that gave him this win today. He was very unlucky a couple of weeks ago, so quite some time ago already actually, at Monza during that Lamborghini challenge. But that bad luck has been redeemed. I think that he's going to be very happy with this performance today.
I think he certainly will do, and we've seen it so many times. Chris Pateri will get 7th, John Varro in 8th place, but that is a wonderful, wonderful victory, and you very, very rarely see something like that come into play. A strategy game here today at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, but what is crucial is that it's not all that we have here with World Pro Racing. There are 3 more events coming up on the horizon. The first one, and that's a really big one, is the AMD Triple Challenge over with R Factor 2. That's going to be something amazing to keep in mind. Some of the greatest names that R Factor 2 has to offer. You've got the likes here, Nicholas, of Jerne Simoncic. You've got Risto Kapin and Erhan Yayoski of Roman Grosjean's esports team. You've got the likes of Jan van der Heide, Jarl Teyen, who will be wanting to try and make some big pushes for Zansho. You've got everybody who is anybody jumping in, having that big opportunity and fighting over 3 races, 3 different vehicles for a top 3 prize. I think this one is going to be a really important battle to see who has some momentum in the R Factor 2 world.
Most definitely. There's a bit of huge names there, even Yuri Kastorp as well, I think, who's also now at RHG Esports. And, you know, we've seen basically all of them in the big ACO 24 hours. And, yeah, whenever there's anything big, whenever there's any bigger competition going on, those guys are there. And I think for tomorrow, we're going to have an amazing bit of battling with them.
Absolutely, we are. And let's not forget as well that we've got, of course, the HyperX Endurance Series coming up. That's going to be worth keeping a watch as well. That'll be happening next week, along with the 1 hour of Kyalami on R Factor 2. It's worth noting that signups are still open for that series, so if you haven't already and you want to go and race and participate, head over to worldproracing.com, where you can find all the amazing places that you can race, all of the different races that are available. Of course, there are sometimes live prizes available as well. You've got to head over to worldproracing.com for your start, your middle, or your end of sim racing. It is the perfect place to go and get into league racing action. But in terms of what we've got today, this is where the curtains start to close in terms of our production here today. We have been on, of course, Motorsport TV, been on TVM Sport and ESTV, the Esports Television Network, and on top of that, World Pro Racing's YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch as well. It's been a fantastic privilege to cover this sort of event, and the best thing is, we come along just 24 hours later, and we will see more sim racing action for you here today. From all of those who have done it behind the scenes, from Adrian Fakayo and George Muscat, who have been the chief stewards and race directors here today for this event, for the likes of, say, Justin and Nathan Mistard, who have been on the cameras behind the scenes, from that, Nicholas Hillebrand, and of course, well, myself, Jake Sperry. This has been a wonderful race. Rike finally gets the time to shine. The glory is there. It's going to be one that is going to be savoured for a very long time. And of course, there are more events on the horizon. Who is going to put themselves in the best possible place? Because there are so much more to get ready for. And 2021 is not a million miles away. We'll see you very, very soon. In fact, we'll see you in 24 hours, why don't we? For the AMD Triple Challenge. This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, GMR Entertainment, WJ England & Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport.
Soul is something you know when you feel it. You can't miss it here. Here. Or here. And some would say it's here. This is soul. Ah, okay, not this. Completely, utterly, soulless. Now, here's some soul. This is the sound of soul. And now, thanks to generous donations of soul from here, and here, we're pleased to say, it's here. Especially here. And here. Introducing the first electric car with a genuine sports car soul. The Porsche Taycan. Soul. Electrified.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
It's just so dangerous. You're risking not only your life, but also my life.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.